Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. So once again, we have another group match coming from the Blue Tit Bash. So this is our most recent ongoing tournament from the Wingspan Tournaments Discord, which features the European expansion. So it's very, very exciting. Like I said, this is in the group stage, which is very, very rapidly coming to a conclusion. So these matches, all very high stakes, lots riding on them. Today's match we have is coming from Group G and features Blazerfan and Kilban. And joining me on the commentary for this one, I have got No M in the hot seat. So how are you doing today, No M?
Hello, Flan. I'm doing great. It is a sunny day in Toronto, Canada. It's the afternoon for me, so feeling
Lovely,
feeling pretty good. How's your day been?
lovely. Yeah, I mean it's a horrible grey, wet evening in London. So I would
I see.
definitely trade places with you if I could. But there we go.
Yeah,
Don't.
sounds par for the course
Yeah.
from what I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very much used to it. So, yeah, just quickly before we get into the game, so I want to take a look at the group standing. So, as I said, we are getting pretty close to the conclusion of the group stage. So, this is
Mhm.
Blazer Fan's final game, and Kilban will have one more after this. So, if you're a Blazer fan, it's pretty straightforward. Win, and you are through to the next round. Obviously, top three in each group will go through. For Kilban, they need a win here and then also win their final game. I believe if they can win that as well, they can just about sneak through in third. So, as I said, lots riding on this game. I think for both players, they will be definitely looking for the win. So, yeah, without further ado, I think we can look to get started. So, we have done the flip, and Kilban is going to be going first. So, Kilban, if you could send the invite out, we'll get this started. And yeah, best of luck to both players.
Perfect. And do we have a French stream? I love trying to interpret the
Yes.
seeing different language versions of
No,
Wingspan.
I like it. I like it. You know, sometimes we get players
Mm,
on with a different language, and they say, "Oh, you know, should I change it into English?" I say, "No, like leave it because
absolutely not.
if we get it in
Yeah.
French, we've had it in German before. I've seen Polish. You know, it's good. It's kind of shows the kind of different cultures and the international environment we have on the server. So very
Yeah, it's such an
exciting
international
indeed.
community, so
Absolutely,
it is really
absolutely.
great to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, we did get a little sneak peek of Kilpan's hand, but yeah, there we go.
Here we are.
Not amazing choices, but at least you know something for the forest and something for the wetlands. So even if they do have some kind
Mhm.
of expensive birds in their hand, you know something there at least I think to work with, and those two bonus cards, pretty good choices as well. So yeah, you know, what are your views on this starting hand? Anything kind of jumps out to you?
Yeah, those are some great bonus card choices.
Mm,
The flicker, it's nice to keep the flicker early game, especially if you have that bird feeder in your favorite, but it's not looking
mm,
great. Only
no.
one worm, right? So unless you're really looking for a bird that requires two worms, you're usually not going to drop that turn one to try and get two. I mean, the quail's an interesting keep. Whenever I see that in my
Mm.
opening hand, you don't tend to always keep a grasslands bird, but it's so cheap, it really gets you started. And if you look at these end of rounds,
Right.
it's extremely egg based. So I
Absolutely.
think there's certainly an argument for keeping the quail here. And I mean, he has options in every habitat, so it's
Exactly.
not an incredible start, but certainly workable.
Yeah, I think the flicker's an interesting one. You know, whenever I see kind of two or three worms or more than that, I think I will
Mhm.
almost always keep it. But when you only see one, it is a little bit more tricky. So yeah, I'm interested
Yeah.
they've kept it. It's a good kind of option. You at least get that maybe second forest bird down, which is always nice to help get a little bit more food. But yeah,
Now we have blazers.
probably a better
Yeah,
looking start there, I think, for Blaze. Obviously, the barn swallow, they're very excited to see that. So probably that's the instant keep. But
absolutely.
anything else there that you might look to add to that?
Yeah, let's use bonus cards. We have ground nests. Did you see
Mm,
the one on the left
I
there?
did. No, I didn't.
Um,
Hopefully, they'll go
yeah, I
back for
mean,
them.
immediately, like, there's always the argument for barn swallow in the wetlands if you're desperate,
Mm,
but he has the common loon. It's
right.
not so. I think when you have that barn swallow in your opening hand and you see end of rounds like this, which really favor a grasslands engine, I
Yeah.
think you're pretty happy. You could definitely take the barn swallow and the loon. Maybe you don't have to activate that loon early game before they have a wetlands bird, and I
Yep.
mean we know that they don't in their starting hand,
Yeah.
but they do not. Yeah, I mean he's struggling a bit for a food option, unfortunately. But what do you think of the Swift usually in an opening hand like this?
It's such a tricky one. I think you can make a case for the Swift if you have really good access to cards. Obviously, it's a very good option in that you get a tuck card, so you get a point, and then you also get a food alongside it. So that is always nice to kind of get two things from that same action. But yeah, I think especially when you've got something like a Barn Swallow, you want to have as many cards as you can so that when you're laying eggs, you've got something to cycle through the deck with. I don't like having something like the Swift as well, where you're kind of actively getting rid of cards, because that just means you are going to have to spend more turns, potentially going to that wetlands and trying to add to that. But yeah, I think Swallow and Loon would be a good keep at the start. Like you say, I think you can always skip that Loon's power if you're not comfortable giving away cards to your opponent. And like we see, obviously Kilban going kind of quite forest heavy on the start, and maybe less so on the wetland, so maybe they would be looking to skip the Loon. But certainly I think get those two down, get a few cards, and start cycling through the Swallow, and I think you can expect to find something pretty good for the forest to add to that.
Yeah, exactly. You can bank on finding something a touch better. And also the Vose Swift is requires the same food as that Swallow, and when the bird figure only has one arm, gets a little bit awkward. I mean, you could feed a card to the Swift to get that worm back for the Swallow, but as you said, it's a lot to keep, and then
it is.
It turns into a bit of a slow start. Do you think you would keep Swallow Loon and then an extra card to tuck under the Swallow, or maybe just keep the two and draw early for a tucking bird, or draw early for a card to tuck under the Swallow?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, because I think if you keep the Swallow and the Loon, that's kind of two birds and three food. So you either keep the extra card or you keep the extra food to make sure you can get the birth down. But yeah, obviously they've chosen not to keep the Loon, so I wonder if maybe they've kind of got their eye on the Night Heron, obviously a big point bird. But when you go second, it's always a risk, because your opponent, they can go and grab that, as Kilban has gone and done here.
Exactly. Yeah, I wonder if that throws a bit of a wrinkle into their plans. I mean, they didn't keep the rat, so maybe that shows they weren't going for it. But there's two rats in the feeder, so maybe they were banking on grabbing that and then grabbing one of the rats. So yeah, interesting that Blazer's gone ahead, and I guess that makes a lot of sense, right? 3 birds, 3 different food, all that food's available in the feeder.
Yep.
You lock in on that single wetlands bird, and you're never upset about 9 points for 3 food.
No, I think that would be a good option, the Night Heron for Kilban. But yeah, for Blaze, I did wonder, particularly after maybe the wetland bird that they might have been looking for is gone. They do go for wetland swallow. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I think it is going to obviously help in this first round, just kind of help get that access to cards. But obviously, like you said, you look at the end of round goals. Longer term, I think the swallow is always such a good option to have that in the grasslands. But you never know. They might be able to get something good to add to it in that wetlands and start to build something really, really strong there.
Yeah, and I feel like you often, when you see a tuck and draw bird like the swallow, and you put it in the wetlands, reactively you think of the opportunity cost. You're wondering, maybe down, later in the game, I would have wanted it in the grasslands. But if that's a ring-billed gull or
exactly
a tuck and draw that only goes in the wetlands, you are super happy to have that as your opening bird. So I think you can be, still reasonably pleased with this start. Interesting to see. Blazer's gone for the Kilban's gone for that flicker.
Yes, yeah, it's always interesting, like I said, when they kind of kept it. I think really you look for more than one worm, right? Because you're kind of paying 1 food to play it. So if you're only getting 1 food back, it doesn't really feel like you're maximizing on it. But it's, like I said, it's not bad. I think if they can get this Eurasian Jay, I think it is, they get that down as well. Suddenly, you're potentially getting 2, even 3 food a time. And I think particularly when you've got something that is as expensive as this Night Heron, then you definitely want to be having as much access to food as possible to be able to get this down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think there's always an argument to keeping the flicker, even if you're not going to play right away, as you said. Waiting for that reset. But I see what he's doing here, right?
Mm,
He knows he needs a lot of food to pay for the only wetlands bird option he has.
yeah.
So in the face of that choice, you get your flicker down, you take the one food, it's depth in your forest row, and then maybe it's a bit of a slow start, but probably by the end of round 1 you can see him having flicker and that I forget what the bird's called, but the other forest bird in the forest, and then hopefully getting that wetlands bird down.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key is like you say, the kind of tempo and getting this set up quickly to make sure that you're able to at least qualify for this this first end of round goal. That is so important. But we see Blazer kind of unsurprisingly, they got the eggs down the last turn, so immediately going for cards here. Obviously get the discard on the eggs and be able to draw 2. So Song Sparrow is an interesting one. I don't mind this early in the game. I think particularly the kind of situation they're in where they don't really have a forest bird. It would help us that second wetland bird. How do you kind of make these kind of migrating birds work early in the game like that?
Yeah, honestly, but before I joined this community, I valued them a little bit higher. I feel like they've kind of poisoned the well for me a bit with the habitat birds. But honestly, I really like the sparrow early. I think in his situation as well, you can fly it into the wetlands to get 2 birds there, which he's not going to need to do because he found that Greep, which is an amazing pickup, I think, for him, right? He's going to be seeing He's going to be seeing 5 cards, tucking 1, keeping 4 net, 3 net, I think.
Yeah.
So that's a great pickup.
That
and
Greep
the sparrow
huge.
works as a forest bird.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before the Greeb comes up, I probably would be looking to get that sparrow down as soon as possible. Like you say, you get extra food, maybe if you're going to discard, and then obviously help with the card draw as well. But one thing I've noticed just with the European expansion as well, obviously there's a lot more birds in the deck. So being able to see more cards a turn and being able to filter through that deck that a little bit quicker is so important. And like you say, if you're able to, you're essentially looking at 5 cards a turn, and I think you can just kind of spend a few turns doing that. You're scoring points with the Tux and the Swallow as well, so it's not a complete dead action. And they could probably do that for a few turns, maybe try and find some strong birds to build up a good grasslands, or maybe some nice food gaining birds to go in the forest. I think that's probably what Blazer's going to be looking to do for the rest of this round.
Yeah, and I guess there is this dilemma now, right, where he's going to be seeing so many cards if he draws, so maybe he's wondering, do I lock in on this Song Sparrow? But I like the idea to do it, and I wonder also if he might feel forced to do this because of that J that just went down. Maybe he'll play it and spend that wheat at the risk of having it stolen.
Exactly.
When there's only rats and fish in the feeder. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's a real kind of heads up, pay attention to what your opponent's doing. Like you say, that Eurasian Jay, the power, it's one of these new expansion birds. You get to steal a seed from one of your opponents. So yeah, I wonder if maybe that sparrow was just gonna, like you say, sit for a little bit, maybe see if you get some better options. But you want that seed to be able to play it maybe, or just kind of prevent your opponent from getting the point. So I think spending the seed, getting that down, I like that. And I think they're probably going to lay eggs at some point anyway. They need to for this end of round, so I don't mind that. I think this works pretty well for them. Yeah,
I'm into that choice. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it might as well. It's good to use a bird.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to use a bird early that will be passable than waiting for the perfect bird.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's other birds like that as well in the expansion. The black-headed gull. I've had a few experiences where you see your opponents just played that and you've only got 1 food. You want to spend that as soon as possible because you know that they're going to be able to steal that. So, it's just one of those, just kind of paying attention, see what your opponent does. You can make things difficult for them. But here we go, not too surprising. Blazer Fan kind of starting to dig through the deck. And that honey buzzard's a pretty good pickup.
Some good options.
Yeah, some good forest, kind of 4 good options that you kind of be happy putting any of them in the forest. Maybe that woodpecker's the kind of worn out because it's a little bit more expensive, but I think any of the other 3 are pretty good options here.
Yeah, there's even. What are your thoughts here? So if you're in Blazer's situation and you draw the Morning Dove here, all of a sudden it's possible to have access to an egg in the wetlands. Do you rush and try to get that down in wetlands, and if not go full tuck, at least double down on that wetlands engine, or do you kind of play it in the forest since you're so desperately needing that?
It's so tricky. Obviously Morning Dove, it does, I think, work well equally in the forest or the wetlands. I tend to not play it so much in the wetlands because I think there are better options for getting eggs. I think you'd either get the seed and play it down in that forest, or I don't know. I'd probably look at trying to get the honey buzzard, but obviously this reroll is not helpful in that respect. And I think even for Kilban, they were probably looking for the worm there so they could try and get this night heron down. But
Exactly.
yeah, morning dove in the wetlands is so tricky, and I think especially when you look at their setup at the moment, they've already got 2 0-point birds down. I think there's only so many of those you can get away with in the game before you really start to kind of feel like you're not scoring points, and it is so tricky to manage that. So I think I'm not too surprised here. It looks like they might be going for eggs, obviously trying to secure this end of round. They know Kilban has only got 1 turn left, so with no birds down in the wetlands, they can't get anything towards that. So I think
just
really
deciding whether to toss the food.
Yeah, and that's kind of the tricky thing. I think at the moment, I think you keep the food, right? You've not got any access to food, so I think you probably value the eggs you've got a little bit higher than the food. But I like this. This is sensible, so they can lay eggs, move the sparrow up, and now they're probably not going to play all 3 of these birds, so you can throw one of them away, get 2 food, and at the same time you're moving that song sparrow down into the wetlands so that you're qualifying for that end of round goal.
I think that's smart. And also there's a risk if he's trying to get the morning dove down, there's a big risk taking a single food and having it be the wheat, because then Kilban can just steal it. So at least if he's getting access to 2 food, then he can force it down in a worst case scenario.
I think probably for Blazer, I imagine they're going to grab the fish and then go for the reroll, and then it's either going to be a seed or a worm. I think whichever one they can get, they'll probably look to get either the jay or the honey buzzard. That would probably be what I'm looking at. But I think the morning dove could work as well. So they certainly, I think, have some good options, but also kind of setting themselves up well as they go into the second round. Obviously, they will be going first, so they'll get that first look at the new bird tray and hopefully be able to get some good options there.
Yeah, you do love to enter round 2 as the second player with 2+ birds in your wetlands, just ready to scoop up, anything good in the tray. It's such an exciting moment whenever you're playing. It's that consolation prize for not starting first. So
yeah, I mean, I think they can be game changing. I think it's something that we have seen again in quite a few of these stream matches where even not necessarily the second round tray, but even that third round and sometimes even the fourth round, a particular bird comes up. I think just being able to have a good wetlands that either gets you lots of cards or gets you points at the same time, so that you're able to justify doing that, is such a nice option to have. So perhaps here not kind of the birds they were looking at. I'd probably still be looking at that Merganser and thinking, my opponent, they don't have the strongest wetlands, right? They've got this night heron because they picked it up earlier, but again, it comes back to this point that we made earlier about you want to see as many cards as possible, and this Merganser just allows you to obviously draw 2 and keep 1. It's such a nice option to have. So it's a risk, I think, here, leaving that for your opponent to maybe grab that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's always that question, right? It's do you sacrifice tempo to deny an important card for your opponent? And it can be so tricky to judge that kind of point impact, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I think it makes sense because I mean, this means that next turn he can move that song sparrow down to the top. Presumably he'll pick up, more birds. Maybe he'll look to get that Baird Sparrow down, because it's going to be this game will favor a Grasslands engine eventually with these end of rounds, and Baird Sparrow works for 2 of those, this round 2 and the round 3 end of rounds. So maybe he grabs it with a draw action, moves that sparrow down, and then he's in a pretty good setup, right? He's got 2 food plus a dove.
Yeah, I certainly.
So I guess,
I certainly think that end of round goals, like you say, that's kind of going to be important for Blazer to at least be able to qualify for. Obviously, this song sparrow is going to help out at least with this next one as well. But yeah, it's so egg heavy, and kind of both players at the moment not really building up that much in the grasslands. So Kilban, we know they got that scaled quail down earlier, so that's a good start. But certainly, I think even with the changes that have been brought about in the expansion, definitely being able to build up a good grasslands that scores points and gets you eggs is always a good option to have. So, yeah, perhaps unsurprisingly, like I said, for Blazer here, go for cards, kind of see what you get. Bed Sparrow, like you said, I think absolutely that's kind of one to pick up, so that makes sense. And then other than that, you're just seeing what you can get, hope for something else that's nice. Otherwise, it is probably just going to be about trying to get some forest birds down. And, I think once you have that option of being able to discard these extra cards and get a bit of extra food, I think that's probably what Blazer Fan is going to be looking to do. So, probably no surprises. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say I feel like with his discarding the Blackbird there is a pretty good signal that he is not committing to that Wetlands engine. He's ready to pivot, jump ship. It's so strong already, and he didn't deny that Merganser. I think he's just going kind of full steam ahead to try to get that Grasslands engine set up.
Yeah, I did wonder if the Blackbird was going to be one that they look to keep, but I think, like you said, they don't want to be drawing cards too many times, because I think at the moment they do run that risk of, you're drawing a lot of cards, you're not scoring a lot of points, and you're kind of filling up your hand with a lot of birds that you're not going to be able to do anything with. So I think, they can obviously look to go for food here. They'll hope for a worm on the reroll and probably be looking to get this Bed Sparrow down. And they still will have enough turns here, I think, to be able to lay eggs a few times. And yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think they can feel pretty competitive for this first end of round goal. It's all really going to depend, as a lot of things do. It's all going to be down to what Kilban can get from the deck, and see what they can add to what they've already got set up here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, and we just saw him go for the wheat and wheat seed grain and the worm.
I think they did. A lot of worms. They did get a worm on the. They did get a worm on the reroll. So I'm wondering. Right. I saw this point out in the chat about this buzzard. I think it's one of those where they got it in the first round. Obviously, if you could have got it down straight away, you get that extra food. But I still think it's a pretty good option here for them. I think it meets the bonus card, obviously 4 points, and just being able to get that little bit of extra food between the rounds, particularly when really at the moment you're only getting 2 food a turn. I think it's a pretty good option. So, Buzzard, is that something you might look to play here?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, it also matches that. Maybe you just said this. It also matches that last end of round. And you don't have a super strong. You do have 2 birds in your food engine if you keep the sparrow there, but having that kind of ambient food gaining with the buzzard at the end of each round is strong. I think it's still strong round if you only have it for round 2 and 3, and sometimes it can be usable food at the end of round 4 depending on the birds you play. Right, if you play the common swift, you can cash those worms. If you get the wagtail down or like a play another bird, it can be useful. I agree with you. I don't mind. You could even trap the sparrow in the grasslands, or just put it after the bared sparrow. Then you have 2 birds in there, and then you play the honey buzzard, and you hope for 2 to 3 worms on that reroll at the end of the round. I think you can be pretty happy with that. Yeah.
I think it's a case of, it helps with that kind of passive food generation. Like you said, you maybe get a couple of worms between the rounds. But I think as well, it's important for them to be able to have that option of discarding cards, because at the moment, they've probably got a few cards there that maybe they're not going to look to play. Obviously, I'm expecting some more cards to be drawn later in the game as well. So I think just being able to get that bit of extra food is always nice. So I think perhaps they'll look to go for food here. Obviously, move the sparrow down, and maybe that will free up a slot for this honey buzzard as well. So I think it's looking pretty good for Blazer Fan. They're kind of getting this set up. The Bed Sparrow obviously key to start that Grasslands engine. But I think here for Kilban, it looks like now is the turn to go for some cards. So this will be interesting if they kind of still have their eye on that Merganser. Obviously, it has been sat there for a little while, but I would certainly still be kind of keen on looking at that. But they go for the Lincoln Sparrow instead. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. I mean, it can certainly feel a bit bad to play the Merganser late round 2. It's only 3 points. It's 2 food. They don't have the fish. They'd have to force it down.
Yeah.
They have the food for the Lincoln Sparrow. So I can see that working, right? Like, you put it down, you put it in your grasslands, you keep it there until you find maybe a better option. It works for, both the next end of rounds. And I forget. Does he have one grasslands bird right now? He does. He has the quail.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe he's thinking about that too, right? If he gets the Lincoln down, then he's at least filled 2 spots there. He'll be getting 4 eggs a turn. So if he played it next, does he have the egg to play? He does not.
No, so I think it's probably going to be lay eggs, play the sparrow, then lay eggs again with 3 turns. Yeah. I think probably. I mean, how many eggs are you looking at there? I think they could probably get to 6. So I think at the moment they're obviously kind of looking at what Blazer's setting up and thinking, right, how can I compete with them for this end of round goal? How can I try and match what they're doing, or try and kind of get one ahead? I think Blazer has that option of being able to just lay eggs twice, and they will be able to win it. But I think it's one of those where if you can maybe force your opponent to do that when they want to play another bird, maybe like this honey buzzard that is going to help them instead, then it might just slow them down a little bit. So I think by kind of grabbing that sparrow, normally you wouldn't grab that kind of bird from the tray if you weren't intending on playing it pretty soon. And again, it is one of those where you want to get it down quickly so that you can really make use of the bird power, and also obviously for the end of round calls as well.
And I think if you're Blazer, you're behind on card advantage. You have fewer cards. You're maybe expecting Blazer. Sorry, if you're. I keep on getting these mixed up. the bottom's Kilban.
We got Kilban on the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, if you're Kilban, you're thinking, all right, Blazer has card advantage. They're going to be looking to play something. Let's at least make it tricky. Don't give them the end of round for free.
Yeah.
I have a bird I can play. I can force that win on the end of round, take a 3-point lead, as opposed to give them a card advantage and an end of round lead. I think it makes sense. I do like this play from Kilban.
Yeah. I think it is one of those where, if you can be able to be competitive in these end of round goals, and like we said, it's all going to be about the egg laying. So I think both players are really kind of it's very similar looking. They've got this kind of brown power to get the extra eggs, and then they've got this migratory bird to help along as well. So they're both kind of helping themselves out, being able to get these extra eggs, which I like. I think it's working out pretty well. So I think Blazer kind of sees that go down. You do the maths. You think about, right, how many eggs can they get versus me? Certainly, they go for the eggs here. Pretty straightforward. Like a little bit of a shame not to be able to get the honey buzzard, but that's the key. Being able to get to 7 eggs. Your opponent can't do anything about that now. So for them, it's going to all be about, do I still want to lay eggs? Is that still part of my plan, or maybe I go and try and do something else here?
Yeah, that was super decisive. I think, as you said, Blazer really had to choose between one of 2 routes. You either lock in on that honey buzzard now at the end of round 2 when you can use those worms, or you just go for the end of round. And I think that's smart, right? Like, you could possibly play the honey buzzard in round 3, or you have good card draw. You could play something else and just continue to steal these end of rounds from Kilban, because this will be I think a 7-point lead on end of rounds if Blazer won the first 2.
Yeah, and that's just huge. I think, so many times in these 1v1 games, if you can get that end of round goal advantage, it's almost impossible to come back from that. I think if you win all 4 of the end of round goals, that is like 12 plus points advantage that you're getting over your opponent. You're going to need to score very highly in all the other categories to try and earn that margin back. So I think certainly if you can incorporate that into the strategy you're already doing, so particularly if they fit with bonus cards you've got, or just naturally by building up this point scoring engine, you're helping out meet these end of round goals. That can be so strong for you to have that option to be able to do that. So obviously pretty strong there. Blazer winning the first 2, and I think they'll be looking to be very competitive in the final 2 as well. But here we go.
But here we go.
We've got a Franklin Skull. We have got a Franklin Skull.
And a Franklin Skull.
When you don't have the card draw, as Kilban is in this position right now, that feels like an instant pickup for me. And obviously this Night Heron as well.
Yeah.
They can grab the fish for that in the same turn, get it down. Helps for the last 2 end of round goals, like we said. Just talking about those. So that's
that large bird specialist. Or actually, wrong player. But no, it is, that Franklin Skull is such a gift. It's kind of exactly what Kilban wanted here. I think, as you say, it's kind of, I would expect them to go for that. Yeah, not even. I love you. You see folks usually draw from the deck first, because maybe it's something better, but just instantly picking up that gull. I
Yeah.
don't think you could ask for anything better in the deck.
No, no.
Even the killdeer,
Exactly.
'cause-
I think I'd prefer
yeah.
the Franklin Skull to the Killdeer right now, because it is obviously, later in the game you want the points, so you do get a couple more. I think that Star Nest as well is helpful. I did wonder if they were going to go for this Magpie as well. I don't mind that. I think it helps for the Ethologist, so it'll get a couple more points potentially if they do get it down. And obviously, you see your opponent, they're going to want to try and get lots of eggs for these next two end of round goals. So potentially a few extra points there. I don't mind that. I think that's a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart play for those reasons, right? I mean, it's 2 extra points for Ethologist, so it's a 3-point bird minus eggs. It fits that last end of round, and it kind of forces your opponent to think, right? Like every turn that Blazer now spends laying eggs is 1 net fewer points.
Exactly.
And when the end of rounds are set up this way, you're kind of stuck in a hard place.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where, like you say, you make your opponents think, and they'll try and maybe try and score points other ways. But obviously, the way these end of round goals are set up, and I think just generally kind of how this board is coming together for Blazer, you kind of see that they're going to be trying to lay plenty of eggs, particularly in that last round. So I think if you can kind of get this Magpie down and just kind of put them off a little bit, make them think, that's always a nice option to have. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Now you get this goal down, you start laying some eggs, drawing some cards. They would have liked to get their hand on that Blackbird as well that's just popped up in the tray. So that is a bit of a shame. And also I think, could potentially be a good pickup here for Blazer, particularly you're drawing lots of cards, you can have lots left over maybe at the end of the game. If you can turn those into extra points with the Blackbirds, I like that. I think that's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I think you're pretty happy to see that Blackbird show up. It's another denial. It's another one of those kind of key birds with the Franklin Skull that's now off the table. Like we saw the Blackbird go. We know the Dark-Eyed Junco, which gives you a wheat for a tuck, was in that opening tray. So we know that's not there. And while Blazer has a pretty good board right now, his food generation is still a touch slow, right? He's only getting 2 food for his food action, because up there he has the Jay and the Morning Dove. So I think he'll be looking for some kind of food generation in the grasslands once he gets that Franklin Skull down. So he did not go for the Blackbird, so he dropped the Grebe, which, I mean, the Grebe also, I think does it fit large bird? Not sure, but it fits like next to end of rounds. The Star Nest is handy.
Yeah, I don't mind the Grebe play. I think 5 points for a single food, I think that's pretty good. Like you say, it helps the next end of rounds. It's just a bit more egg space in general for you to lay eggs onto. But yeah, I think it's bold. I think it's bold leaving the Blackbirds. I think, like I said, it is kind of good for both players here. Obviously, Kilban naturally is going to have lots of cards left over with this Franklin Skull, so being able to get some extra points with that is always nice. But yeah, I think it works well for Blazer as well. So I think surely they have to grab this now. I think by playing the Grebe, they're kind of setting themselves up to go for cards and maybe get that little bit of extra card cycle to look at extra cards. So yeah, I would certainly be grabbing that if I'm going for cards anyway here.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and then you see also Kilban kind of double down with the dropping the Franklin Skull and kind of not greedy, but kind of understanding. Well, Blazer didn't grab it, so maybe he won't grab it next turn.
Yeah.
I'll do a more efficient grab if I drop the Franklin Skull first, and it looks like it's worked out for him.
Yeah, and it is one of those, this kind of thing comes up all the time, is, okay, well, you're kind of second guessing your opponent. You're sort of like playing chicken with the tray. I'm not going to take it, so you're not going to take it. How long is it going to stay there before it almost gets to the point where it's too late? Because at some point, if you are going to play it, you want to play it early as possible to really maximize on those tucks. So, but like you said, I think a lot of it does come down to, okay, how can I draw this in the most efficient way where I'm scoring points or kind of using the right bird powers and not force myself sort of too off the track I was sort of going down, because we are getting towards this late game, which is where you kind of want to have things set up. You want to be taking those kind of strong actions that are making the most of your engine. So yeah, it's so tricky and kind of not the kind of time when you really want to be wasting turns doing something that isn't really scoring you points or making the most of what you built up.
Yeah. The kind of point calculation definitely changes as you get later and later into the game. It feels worse and worse to take a 0-point draw action.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, like you say, those 0-point actions. You kind of want to avoid them as much as possible. So I think obviously for Kilban here, if they do need cards, they've got this Franklin Skull, and yeah, they are going for Blackbird, which is nice. And yeah, I think for Blazer, they're probably going to try and maximize on the cards as much as possible so they don't have to spend too many actions in that final round drawing cards, because it is always a bit of a scramble. Maybe something good comes up in the bird tray and you want to grab it, but you only have those 5 turns and you want to spend as many of those in the final round scoring points. So it's such a tricky position to be in.
Yeah, if you're Blazer, what are you looking for right now? What's your dream bird to show up after a draw action?
It's so tricky because they've not got that great food source, right? So obviously there's lots of big point birds in the deck, maybe a bonus card giving bird that you might look to grab. But when you're only getting 2 food, maybe 3 if they move this sparrow up and could go for the discard, it's quite difficult to get many of those down. So obviously they'll hope for a nice reroll with the honey buzzard between the rounds. But yeah, I think really you're looking for a tucking bird. I think like I say, Blackbird would have been nice. There are some other options there as well. I think at the moment, they're going to be drawing. I mean, what is it? They're going to be looking at like 7 or 8 cards, right, and then keeping 4.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
So you're seeing so many cards, but you're also keeping a lot of them. And you don't want to have too many cards left over at the end of the game, because that's basically a waste. Like, you've not scored points from them. You maybe had to spend 1 too many turns drawing cards instead of laying eggs or scoring points. So I don't know. I mean, it's a great question, because I think whenever you are drawing cards, it's so important to have in mind, what am I looking for? What's the ideal bird to fit with this? But honestly, I don't even really know at this point for Blazer Fan what they could be looking for.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, maybe you're looking for birds that have worms in their food cost, and then you're hoping for a really good reroll on the buzzard. Yeah. I mean, maybe he has that one berry. Maybe you get like a mountain bluebird, that double play bird, into Chaffinch, and build up that Grasslands engine, toss away a few extra cards. Maybe that kind of helps you out late game. I think the one of the things going for Blazer is that he has 2. You want the first 2 end of rounds. Not that you want to give away 3 and 4, but you have that lead. So I think you have a little bit more flexibility, whereas Kilban will feel a bit more pressure to take those points back and lay a lot of eggs in this round and the next.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a good point. It's something that I kind of think about sometimes as well. If you do win those first 2 end of rounds, you do think to yourself, okay, I've got those points in the bag. I can take it a little bit easy as you go into the final 2, and even if I lose the next 2, I still come out even overall, so it's not a disaster. But it's still points. Points are still points, so you wanna try and maximize as much as possible. But unsurprisingly, Blazer go for the cards, see what you can get. Rough is a potential play, maybe. I mean, it's still, they're probably going to have cards left over at the end, so you're guaranteed for 6 tucks. It helps you cycle a little bit in between the 3rd and 4th round, which is nice. Now that Goshawk is a great pickup.
You love to see
exactly
that for sure.
And I can't believe it didn't come to mind. But kind of those 2, obviously the Eagles are going to be so nice. That's probably really what they're going for. So Goshawk really good. Cowbird as well potentially might still be early enough if they can get a C to get that down. You know your opponent's going to be hammering this grassland, so. If you can try and counter that as well, it's a good option. But some good pickups
it gives
there.
you the flexibility.
Yeah,
for sure. I think he can be happy with that draw. And I mean, if he gets that cowbird down, it means that he can spend maybe 1 or 2 more actions in his last 7 actions of the game playing birds. He doesn't want to egg that much if he can avoid it and still earn points otherwise. Because every time he eggs, he's giving a point away because of Kilban's magpie. I really don't mind this, right? Like I know there's only 2 turns left. If you could find a way to get the rough down, I think that could be really really handy. I don't think it's too late, right? If you get the full 3 tucks on both rounds, that's 8 points minus the eggs. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I'd definitely be looking to get that rough down if possible, and I imagine kind of the way this bird feeder reroll's gone with that extra worm, I think they could probably look to grab that and get this down. Yeah, I think they should be okay to have enough cards to tuck on the end. You know, maybe they need to go for cards again if something good comes up in the round 4 tray they want to grab. Obviously, the Goshawk, if they're going to play that will need some cards as well to feed that. So, yeah, options. I think options here for Blazer, which is always good because kind of before that turn during cards, I wasn't really sure what they could do with the existing hand. So it certainly has improved the situation, I think, with that card draw.
Yeah, you love to see some direction. That's one of the worst feelings in Wingspan when you're you feel like you're floundering. You feel like you may be behind a bit from a bird perspective, you know, seeing Kilban get that Franklin skull, and then you just have a lot of birds that just don't mesh with your food or egg situation or what you're trying to do with the rest of the game. And I think I think this puts him in definitely a much better place, and he's able to get that worm. So maybe we will see that rough going down.
Yeah, I think
before the end of this round.
I think if you are going to play it, it has to be now. You know, it's probably not worth playing it just in that final round. Obviously, you kind of miss out on the points from the tucks, but also, that extra card cycle is so nice. So I think that's probably the priority for them. I did just notice that the Kilban went into their settings and changed it all to English. So I don't know if it's been playing on their mind or if it's just something that occurred to them now that it's all been in French. But it was fun while it lasted. We got a little bit of French learning at the same time. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll take it.
As someone that had to take mandatory French for 8 years, I still could really use it because I have a woefully small amount of French words in my lexicon.
No,
or you know what? Maybe that's just the Kilban strat. You know, maybe late round 3 he always changes to English. It refocuses him. the late game language change strats.
Yeah. The mental reset. You know, get it in English so I can really focus and make sure I'm doing the right decisions.
Yeah.
maybe that's how it works. So we can ask them about that after the game. See if there's any sort of method to the madness or if it is just kind of something that came to mind. But lots and lots of thinking here for Blazer on this food. So I think they are just trying to plan out, you know, what's the priorities, what am I going to play? Obviously, if the rough is going to go down, like we said, you kind of have to grab that worm. But I think they are trying to plan a little bit and think about, you know, what else is going to go down. Probably something like the Seti's Warbler. You're probably not going to play that. This Great Horned Owl could be an option if you are able to get some extra rodents. Obviously, we see that there's one they're grabbing and potentially another one in the bird feeder as well that they could have looked to grab. So lots and lots of options, like we said, but it is potentially also going to come down to just what they can look to grab in this 4th round.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky. They're only on 1 bird for the large bird specialist. I'm sure they'll really be trying to meet the bottom threshold for that. So, you know, the Goshawk is pretty obvious. That will work. So then maybe they're hoping to get the owl down. And then maybe one more. Is rough? Does rough qualify? I'm not sure offhand.
I can't remember. We might, if they do play it. I hope they do play it. Then we will be able to see it. But it's a good point on the bonus card. It's so tricky. I think when you go into that final round and you've only got 1 out of 4 birds, right? And you know, okay, even if I'm going to meet that lower threshold of 3 points, I've still got to play 3 more birds. That is a lot to kind of commit to. And obviously, if you can make it work and you can fit it in with playing birds that kind of fit with what you're trying to set up, or, you know, obviously birds that are going to score big points, that's the ideal situation. I certainly wouldn't be going out of my way to meet it, but if I can score points and then also get those extra 3, it's not a bad option to have. And I think as well, this last end of round goal is the platform nest, so certainly getting a couple of those down, if they're going to meet that, that's going to help out with the end of round goal advantage as well.
Yeah, it always feels a little bad late game when some of your big point bombs are reliant on finding rats.
Yeah.
It's arguably the hardest food to find in the game, right? You don't have birds that provide rats as a brown power. It's equally as unlikely as cherries and fish. It can be a bit of a hassle to get down. So hopefully he gets a favorable reroll. I know there's one in the bird feeder there, but it will be a bit of a struggle for them to get that down.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
now we're
I think it's
seeing the
possible.
magpie, right?
Yeah, so the magpie does go down. I think this is the turn where both players are going to get their teal powers down, and I don't
Yeah.
mind that. I think it's one of those, you don't need to play it until the end of the round. You're not going to get any benefit playing it earlier. So obviously both players kind of getting that down, so they get the activations. I think it's just going to be one cached food for Kilban here, which is they're probably hoping for more than that, but I think potentially they might be able to get maybe 2 or 3 in the final round. And if that's the case, with it helping for the bonus card and this end of round goal as well, then maybe it is still worth playing and it's going to work out. But certainly this rough, I think, is really good here for Blazer. They can just kind of get rid of some of these cards in their hand that they're maybe not going to play. So I think probably the Warbler and some of those other ones. Whoa, that is exactly what you want to see. That is what you want to see.
That is a lifeline.
That is a lot of worms.
Wow.
So that's enough. That's enough where if you want to force down this horned owl, you've now got the food to do that. I mean, you're kind of overpaying quite a bit, but I think 4 worms, I don't think they would have been expecting that. So that is a very welcome treat here at the end of the 3rd round.
Yeah, I know you've done that math. Like, what are the chances on
now
4 worms and 1 reroll?
Now you put me on the spot.
Not to put you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot.
It's low. I'm sure it's very
small.
low.
It's small. I think it's. I want to say about 3%. It's pretty small.
Wow.
So yeah, you don't expect to see that. I think normally you expect about 2. I think 3, you're having a good day, and then any more than that is like unheard of. So. Yeah, that justifies
like
playing it now.
Ticket.
Exactly, yeah.
Sure.
Being able to get the 4 there, that's so nice and just kind of gives them some options as well. So
yeah, and I love that combo, right? When you have that worm reroll and then the rough at the end of the game, at the end of each round, you get your food and then you tuck with rough and draw more, and you see what you can play.
Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, so we got the flamingo here, which you probably won't look to play if Kilban's not drawing much. I mean, maybe that is that the Phoebe? I think
it's the Nightingale. So it's the one that's like the Phoebe, but you pick what food you want. So
interesting. Like, maybe there is an argument here to grab that puffin, or either of those bonus cards are pretty attractive, and then maybe you draw that Nightingale so that you can egg and get the food for it. But it's quite late for the Nightingale, and
it
there's
is.
only 4 turns left after this draw.
Exactly, and I think
this is where you break out your sums, break out your math.
This is the point. This is the point where you try and work out. You're like, okay, how many turns have I got left? Right, how many birds? I need to have some birds for the rough. Okay, if I'm going to play this goshawk, I need a couple of birds for that. So you're kind of working out your thinking, and then in the background you've got this end of round goal that you're going to probably want to lay eggs at some point to try and meet that as well. So it's a tricky one. I think. I mean, I probably take if you're going for cards, you take the puffin anyway, because that's just such a strong one to leave to your opponent as well. So I don't mind that, even if it is just a denial. But like you said, with the rodents, it's going to be really tricky. I think getting the 3 fish for that. So maybe it doesn't get played. But even the other bonus card bird, they can play that straight away, even if they are overpaying a bit, and maybe try and get some other birds down, because I think if you're Blazer here, you try and minimize the number of turns laying eggs. Like we said before,
exactly.
They'll want to lay eggs once to meet the end of round, but every time you lay eggs, you're giving a point to your opponent. So, if you can minimize that and you can spend the turns playing big point birds like they've got in their hand, then that's kind of the ideal situation here.
And I mean, and it's good because you'll have they know that they'll have at least 3 birds left at the end of the game, cards left to tuck under rough. So you're probably keeping that in mind too. And thankfully they do have enough. I like putting down the goshawk here, right? You get it out earlier so that you can lay eggs on it when you need to, and then hopefully that if they're gonna play that woodpecker or the puffin, hopefully that goes down soon as well, because then you have a bit of time to see your bonus card,
Yeah.
Assess how many points you're going to get, and maybe change your plans depending. Because I know that, I mean, we know that Uologist is out of the bonus card deck, but Blazer does not, and maybe that's something he might be looking for.
Yeah, I think it's so tricky. I think they are going to have to work out in these final 3 turns, what's my best option? Do I go for food and try and get one of these big point birds down, bearing in mind that obviously going for food, you're basically only getting 1 point through that dove, or is the woodpecker, is that the option to play that and then go for eggs a couple of times? You got to think about what's kind of your best option here. I think you look at Kilban, it's a lot more straightforward. They've just managed to get this blackbird down now, so it's going to be 3 turns hammering those eggs. They probably don't even need to use the gull. They've got those 3 cards they can tuck under the blackbird already in their hand that they can use. So I always like that a lot more when you're kind of when you're in that final round and it's very plainly obvious. I lay eggs and I get what's going to be like 7 points for them. It's pretty straightforward. That's what I'm going to do. I don't have to overthink it. They might maybe need to think about egg space. I don't know if that's going to be a problem. They might just about be okay, but even you kind of look at the birds in your hand and you think, if I spent 1 turn gaining food and 1 turn playing a bird, I'm not going to get as many points as I would laying eggs. Whereas I think for Blaze, it's a very, very different situation where they've got some really good options to play birds in their hands and maybe aren't going to score quite so many points if they just go for eggs.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it is. I think I will. I would never blame someone like Blazer or anyone in this position for taking a long time with these upcoming turns. I think it can really come down to 1 point, and especially when you're thinking about actions that give your opponent 1 point. It kind of complicates the math a little bit. So every time he's going to egg, he's dropping 1 point. And it's interesting here. I mean, how many large birds does he have now? I think he's on 2.
I think it's just 2. So this is the thing. I think if the horned owl was going to be that final one to meet the threshold, I think you play it. I think you get that down. Obviously, big points. If you get that extra 3 from the bonus card, it's so nice. But I think you look at this position where I think the option for them is, do I go for the woodpecker or do I go for the horned owl? And then you're kind of weighing up that bonus card, and this is where you look at your board and think, what bonus cards could I score points for? Would I get points for Forester? Yes. Would I get points for Fishery Manager? I'd get a few. You're kind of counting and going through and thinking, what is good and what is bad? And how many points can I expect from that? Because it is just such a gamble playing one of these bonus card birds late in the game.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I don't think large bird specialist is in reach at all, really. I mean, but you could drop that woodpecker down, force it down with the worms, so you still have that 1 route remaining for your horned owl, and then you take food. It's maybe a 1 point action because your horned owl should succeed. Hunting powers are fickle, but let's say should. And then you get you get 1 more rat from the bird feeder. And then 2 of any food, so you would be able to force it down. They could do woodpecker, food, owl. It just really, and then you're not spending any turns egging, but you are kind of tossing away that last end of round, I think.
And I think that's the other thing they're trying to take into account. So I think Kilban at the moment has got 3 of those platform nests, and you kind of look at that setup and you think they're just going to hammer the eggs. So I think Blazer's probably okay in that respect. I think they've got 6 platform nests, so I don't really think they need to be looking at playing another. But I think probably for me it looks like woodpecker and then maybe eggs. If you play the woodpecker, that costs you 3 food, so you still got a couple more. You can throw those away. You're at least getting 5 points. I know you're then giving your opponent 1. So you're basically scoring 8 points from those 2 turns. That kind of feels like you're going to score more than trying to play some of these birds. But if they go for the horned owl, I mean, I don't blame them there either. I think it is kind of so difficult when you don't have this strong grasslands and you're giving points to your opponent. It's it always feel dangerous going for those eggs late in the game.
It really does. And I mean, you're locking in on 6 points, maybe another action, maybe another point if you food. And you're not giving away a point when you're egging. I'm curious to see what he does after this. Maybe it is food and then woodpecker. Because they won't be able to get the puffin down, I don't believe. Or they just hammer eggs. They don't have food to toss away, but it's still going to be 8 points if you egg twice. Minus the 2 from the opponent's magpie, so it's it's 6 points, or yeah, I mean, if you food and then play the woodpecker, it would be maybe 1, and then what you're looking at 2 points for the woodpecker after the egg discount, and then who knows? Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 0.
Yeah, it's so tricky, and I think sometimes with these bonus card birds, for me, I'll weigh up the risk depending on whether I feel like I'm ahead or whether I feel like I'm chasing. So if I need to gamble, if I feel like, just laying eggs is not going to get me the win, I need to gamble and find that 6-point, 8-point bonus card. That probably is going to weigh into it a little bit. But this kind of feeds into my next question. We've got a poll up in the chat for the viewers. But pretty straightforwardly, who do you think is going to win this game?
This is honestly a close one, but to be fair, I think I'm notoriously bad at calling games. I will think that a game is 1 point away, and then I'll see that I've lost by 20 points, and I'll go, what was I thinking? Okay, if I had to guess, I mean, we have Kilban has Ethologist, at least he's getting some bonus card points. I think I'd give it to Kilban, but I think it's gonna be narrow, and I think it's gonna come down to those eggs and those tucks right at the very end. But now that I say this out loud, we do see that Blazer won 3 of the 4 end of rounds.
Yeah.
And if he gets, tell you what, I think if he plays this woodpecker and it's a good pull, like 4 or more points, I think Blazer may just squeak it. Otherwise, I think it's Kilban's. What do you think?
Yeah, it is going to be so close. I mean, both players have kind of given us a few little sneaks of the scores throughout this final round. So I think going into this last round, it did look like Blaze was slightly ahead. And obviously, Kilban spent a few turns setting up, getting this Blackbird down. Now they have got it set up. That is pretty straightforward, 6-7 points a turn. They know they're going to get some extra caches from the Magpie. So I think they're pretty much neck and neck as it stands. But obviously, Kilban is going to have these 2 turns here laying eggs. So it's all going to be on that woodpecker. We know they'll get some points playing it. We got to bear in mind, see the end of round goal they're winning, and those 3 extra points through the rough, which is going to be nice. So it's always easy to forget those. But I think I'd probably just give it to Kilban. But, I'm trying to think for Blazer fan what the best bonus card is, right? Rodentologist is going to get you 4 points. Omnivore get you 4 points. I can't think of many.
Ethologist is 6, but
but it's already gone.
We know that Kilban has it.
Obviously Ecologist would be 6 as well. I can't think of many that are going to be more than that. So I think 6 is probably the limit of what they can expect.
Bird Bander isn't going to work. The multiple habitat one.
No. But I mean 6 points. 6 might be enough. 6 might be enough, but it is going to be close. I think this one.
Yeah. We could see 6 happen. It's also tricky, right? When you're playing that bonus card bird late game, you're also, you need to be thinking about the bonus cards you actually want. But I think intuitively, that when you only have, how many birds do they have down? I think they got 10 birds down out of the possible 15. They'll play that woodpecker, so they'll be at 12 or 11. But you kind of wonder, is that enough birds to actually qualify for enough of these bonus cards? Is Viticulturalist an option? I know
I think they've got
going to give him one.
I think they'll have 2 down for Viticulturalist. Maybe this woodpecker will get them the 3rd. So I think they would still just be a little bit short on that. But it's still 3 points. So they, like I say, they've got some options. It is always a gamble, and they'll obviously be hoping for something good. But I think for Kilban, I don't think they need to go for card tip, but I think egg space is going to be a problem. So I did see this was pointed out in the chat. I think the quail was going to fill up, and obviously, you kind of don't. You're going to lose the egg anyway. I think they're going to have to lay one here, right? So it's either this turn or next turn. They've only got 4 egg spaces, right? So they're already going to fill up when they lay the eggs. Even the blackbird, they're not going to get one from as well. So that might be a little bit of a factor. Again, we say so many of these games come down to just 1 or 2 points. So missing out on those 1 or 2 eggs can be costly. But here we go.
Exactly.
This is the moment of
Here
truth.
we go. Moment of truth.
What's it going to be? Oh, there we go. 6-point ecologist. That is what you take. That is what you take. And that
I think you're happy with that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, what's this? 2 points for the bird, 6 points for the bonus card, so 8 points for your final turn. I think you always take that. So, oh man, and then the 3 extra points.
You're always wondering if you're Kilban. You're like, what did they pull?
Exactly.
Is this some late game point bomb, or is it just a complete null pull? So
yeah, because that does happen so often.
I would maybe. It does, and it just feels terrible. I think I would maybe give Blazer the edge here now, just with that last action. I think his game really turned around, honestly, from that penultimate turn of round 2 with that draw of the Goshawk and Ruff.
Yeah.
I think he's played this end game well, given the situation he was in.
Exactly. Yeah, I think. I said it earlier. So often it's kind of one turn will turn the game around, and I think for Kilban, obviously being able to get that Franklin's goal was so useful that they've made good use of that throughout the game as well. But yeah, kind of that one turn, Blazer kind of picked up. I think, like you said, I think it was the Goshawk and the Owl and maybe the Ruff on the same turn as well. So it kind of all came together. All these birds they've looked to get down, and these 3 final tucks, very very welcome on the Ruff for some extra points. So. I have a feeling like it's going to be really close. Here we go.
I think so too.
Here we go. And obviously, no eggs and no cached food for that magpie, which I'm sure Kilban will be disappointed with. But here we go. The points are counting up, and obviously the birds and the bonus cards. That's
a good lead on the
ecologist. Good lead on the end of round goals as well. So it's looking like it's going to be eggs and tuck cards that maybe is going to drag it back. Oh man, it's close. Oh, there we go.
Oh wow. Alrighty.
So fairly comfortable, I think. 10 points in the end. I think you could be pretty happy with that. So
but
good,
definitely hinged on a few small things. Right? If that honey buzzer didn't pull the 4 worms, maybe you have to food twice, and then also if that woodpecker whiffed and got 0 points, you're looking at a 2-point play. It could have been extremely close with a bit worse luck, I think, from Blazer. But that's super well played from both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good game, good finish, and in the end, Blazerfan does take the victory, 80 points to 70. So we will briefly bring the players back into the room, just kind of get their thoughts. So Blazerfan, I will come to you first. So first of all, obviously, congratulations on the win. How did you find that game?
Thank you. I was just saying to my Twitch chat, it was a huge defensive struggle. It was one of those really fun games. A lot of times, you have games where you get great cards and you just feel like it plays itself, but other times you have to play a lot off of what your opponent's doing. And Kilban had a really cool board. Played the what's it called, the one that steals wheat, the Eurasian Jay, I think. So that quickly, I had to pay really close attention to that. And then when he played the magpie as well, I had to kind of think about deviating off of laying eggs. And so it felt like I was walking through mud there for a bit, but the Ruff kind of saved me a bit. And when I rolled 4 grubs with the honey buzzer, I mean,
we popped off a bit.
Was massive. Yeah. I mean, that allowed me to play the Great Horned Owl. So I was pretty lucky.
No, I think you're right. I think some of these games, when you see those pink powers or teal powers in this case, you do kind of adjust a little bit. Normally you'd probably just go and hammer those eggs, but you're obviously cautious of giving away points. So, felt good. Certainly that final round, getting those birds down. But I'll come now to Kilban. So, obviously commiserations first of all, but kind of just from your perspective, your take on that game.
It was a good game. I think I probably played the birds you mentioned a bit too early, maybe, but that was the cards I got in the beginning, and at least for the Eurasian Jay. And I didn't have any other way to gain food quickly, so I figured I might as well play it as quickly as possible. But I didn't count on my opponent playing so well around it. Congratulations, because you gave me 1 point with it.
Yeah.
So I think it didn't work out. It's pretty expensive bird, and actually it disappointed me. But I'm still discovering this expansion, and a lot of those birds in the expansion are kind of tough to make them work. So yeah, maybe I mean I felt behind the entire game, so I'm not surprised at all at the results.
Yeah, I mean, we're all learning, right? There's so many new birds in this expansion to get a hang of. I think particularly, like you say, just with that J, when you've only got one opponent, it is so easy for them to not take the seeds in the bird feeder or make sure they're spending them before you get a chance to use it. So it is a tricky one to work with, but it did, I think, from our perspective, feel like you were trying to sort of fight your way back in that game. I think the end of round goals, the first two in particular, where Blazer was able to grab those, it is kind of very difficult to fight your way back after those. But again, that final round, I think once you got that blackbird down, it's always nice. You know, I said this to No M on the commentary. It's so nice when you have those final few turns, just lay eggs, get those tucks. Obviously, unfortunately, not enough in the end, but I think well played and well managed. Both of our players, it was certainly a very entertaining game to watch.
Yeah, it really was. And also, I think that, you know, at the end of the game, you see that Eurasian Magpie and you think, oh, you know, there's only one cache on that. But, you know, as Blazer, as you said, right, it really forced Blazer to play around it. So I think there's kind of a hidden point value to that play anyway. So I you know, we were commenting on that choice. I think it made a lot of sense, and I like that play.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes you look at the scores at the end of the game, and I think some people look at it and go, oh, that was a low scoring game, but it's low scoring because of the defensive plays, right? So you're kind of tactically not maximizing your own score by laying eggs because you know you're going to give your opponent points, and things like, you know, make sure you don't have the seed so they can't steal it and get the cash food there. You know, that will often play into it as well. So by no means a bad performance, I think, from either of you.
No, I actually think lower scoring games, especially in a one-on-one format, it's actually higher level play most of the time. You know, because it's both sides trying to play off each other. You
Absolutely,
know, like you said.
Yeah, definitely can be the case.
What do you think about the Eurasian J by itself? Do you think it's a good word? After this game, I think it can be interesting, but like you said, on one-on-one, it's not that effective most of the time.
Yeah. I think it's a good bird. I mean, most of my experience with the European expansion is actually I play a lot like the physical board game with my friends and family, and in a 4 or 5 player game, that this bird is so good. You know, because you have so much more opportunity to take. It's like a pink power bird in the same sense that you have so much more opportunity to take advantage of it with more players. So I don't know. I kind of lucked out. I mean, if I hadn't rolled the honey buzzer, getting those 4 extra grub to get that food, you know, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been forced to gain food, and I might have had to grab some weeds, giving you a couple extra points. So I'm not really sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both of our players for agreeing to stream. Like I said, that was definitely a good game to watch. So glad we could get that on stream. And thank you to No M for joining me. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that one as well.
Yeah, that was a blast to watch and commentate with you. So thank you, Flan, and thanks for streaming, and thanks Blazer and Kilban for playing a really, really entertaining game.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you as well to the viewers, of course, for watching. And do stay tuned. We have another stream or 2 coming up, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But take care, and we will see you around.